Hey, what's going on, everybody? Just gonna do a quick video today. I know that the last video that I made with the steak and rice bowl, I had mentioned that I reverse seared the steak. I didn't necessarily show the process, but I'm gonna make a quick video on that today. So I'll show you what protein I have in a minute. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna reverse sear it. I'm gonna start off with the oven, and then once I bake the meat here to a certain amount of degrees and temperature, then I'm gonna finish it off outside on the grill, just because I want a nice char on it, and yeah, because who doesn't like grilled beef? So let me show you what I'm gonna be making today and how I'm gonna do it. All right, so I have a really nice piece of tri-tip here. What I did with this tri-tip is the night before I salt brined it. So basically took it out of the package. I put some kosher salt. You can see some leftover kosher salt that's in there that didn't stick, but I covered this up pretty heavily with kosher salt, so it really turns the beef like a really nice colored red. Hi, babies. Hello, I see you. And so it's bringing up some moisture up from the meat, but the salt is actually penetrating the meat itself. So there should be kind of a nice natural little salt flavor in here. So what I'll do is I'm going to throw the steak in the oven as is. And right now the oven is preheating, but it's going to be preheated to 225. 225 is pretty low when it comes to meat because I want this to cook low and slow. Since my daughter and we just came back from picking her up from daycare, it'll allow me to attend to her a little bit. But yeah, and then I'll explain one more step here. Okay, so what I'm gonna use is this meat thermometer, and it's a wired one. I don't have a Bluetooth one just yet, but it basically looks like this. So you plug that sucker in, you stick this inside the meat. So tri-tip's a little funky because of the 3 tips in the meat, so I'm gonna plug it into probably this end and try to puncture it through so it can kind of get in the middle, just because it's the biggest part of the meat. I'm gonna set this temperature at about, or in terms of, I want the temperature to alert me at a certain temperature. I want to cook this steak in the oven until it hits about 125 degrees, give or take. Medium rare typically is about 135. I find with tri-tip, because it's so lean, if you're 130s, it still can be a little rare for my taste. And I don't want it to be overly chewy and things like that. So while it's a great cut of meat, it's really good. It just doesn't have the fat content in it. So I'm gonna cook it probably more to medium. But once again, that is just my preference. It should still be plenty pink. But once this gets to 125, once I finish it off on the grill, because I'm gonna be searing it pretty hot, like it's probably gonna be a whole chimney starter worth of coals. It's gonna get piping hot, and I'm gonna sear that probably on each side for like a minute or so, minute and a half. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna plug this sucker in. I'm gonna cook it in the oven, and then I'll come back in a couple hours later, and then I'll just show myself grilling it. And for this steak, I'm not necessarily making a meal out of it. This is just adding on to leftovers. So tonight is just going to be kind of a leftovers kind of night. But then as we dwindle down on the leftovers, I'm just trying to keep my inventory of protein already made. So that way, if we have to make additional sides or extra rice or whatever, that'll be a lot easier to make, because proteins, it's a little bit more preparation, and they don't cook necessarily as fast depending on what you're going to do with it. So that's how I'm just approaching this. But we should have some leftovers for a few days, which is the goal. So the tri-tip is done. That took about maybe hour and a half, give or take. I would let the whatever protein you're making, I would let that kind of come up to room temperature, just so you're not cooking it so frigid and so cold. It'll cook evenly. There's some oil on this because I'm gonna throw it on the grill, but even without the oil, you can tell just like it just kind of looks really pale and just kind of weird looking. But that's just because it was baking. And right now I already seasoned up the bottom, but I'm gonna go ahead and season the top pretty good here. And I'm just gonna be using this stuff. Really, really good seasoning. But you can do salt, pepper, garlic. You can just do salt. You can just do pepper. Whatever you want. Doesn't matter. Personal preference. So I'm going to go ahead and season this up, and then I'm going to throw it on the grill. Alright, here's a finished product. I didn't film myself outside because Texas right now it's like 108 degrees. Excuse me. So I wasn't about to do that, but as you can see, I seared this pretty hard. I mean, it's not completely just charred up on the outside, but you know, there's some definite charring going on, which is exactly what I wanted. So hopefully it'll cut nicely once I cut into it. Andy, of course, has his dad here, and this is the big one, Eddie. This went 445. All right, so as you guys can see from the meat, it came out pretty good. It was pretty pink all the way through. The thing about a tri-tip, unlike other meats, is that because there's 3 points to the meat, hence tri-tip, the smaller end or the pointy end, it's gonna cook a lot faster. So what's nice about the reverse sear is even though it'll be more like medium well on that point of the steak, it should still be like fairly tender because it had a lot of time to cook and it didn't get cooked overly quick. So and as the steak, you know, gradually gets bigger, it'll just become more vulnerable to being rare. Like I said, I was trying to go for more of like a medium, but I took it off the grill a little bit early. But it still came out pretty good. It's still pretty tender. So, like I said, use any seasoning you like. If you don't want to finish it off on the grill, if you don't have a grill, you could do it on a nice, like on a good cast iron pan. That's what I did with the picanha steak for when I made those rice bowls. But yeah, I mean, the grill, I had some corn that I'm throwing up on the grill here. And I just want to cook these, so I figured, you know, why waste the coals? You know, try to multitask as best as I can. But that's how you reverse sear steak. You could do that with the ribeye. You could do that with picanha. You could do that with tri-tip. You could do that with a tomahawk. I've done it with a tomahawk steak. It's all the same process. It's the idea of cooking the meat slowly, so that way it has a fighting chance to be tender. And then at the end, you just sear the hell out of it. Get a good crust on there to your liking. You can use whatever seasonings you want, and it comes out perfect every time. You know, so trust your thermometers. Trust your feel. If it's too bouncy on your finger, chances are it's going to be too rare. There's different videos out there that'll show you like how to test for medium rare, like just by touching your face or points on your hand. But if you have a thermometer, it's not a bad investment to make. They're not overly expensive. You don't have to buy a Wi-Fi one, although the Wi-Fi ones are nice, but you don't necessarily need that. But yeah, but that's how you sear a steak. Hopefully this video has been informative. Like I said, I didn't show myself filming searing the steak on the grill because I had that thing at like 600 degrees, so it was pretty hot, so I couldn't necessarily multitask, and I didn't want my phone to overheat either during filming because it'll just shut off on you. So thanks again for tuning in. Take care.